Hello everyone, this is M. Shanae for Oak Forest Audio. Today we're going to be taking a look at the SMSL SU-9. This is a brand new fully balanced DAC that is $439. A big shout out to the team at Apos Audio for sending this to me a little bit early to get the review out. Some features of this that are prominent and worthwhile are it does full MQA decoding, that's all the way to level 3 of the 3 unfolds. It also supports Bluetooth with both LDAC and UAT, which UAT is, I believe, proprietary to Hibby and does full 24.192. Now LDAC is much more common and gives you Bluetooth support with 24.96K. Cool. Now, additionally, it uses the eSaber 9038 Pro DAC chipset and has both USB input, which is what you'll use for MQA. It does both digital coaxial as well as optical. Now the outputs are 3-pin XLR, dual, and then RCA. For this review, I do want to compare it to a variety of products and focus just on RCA and then also its XLR outputs. We'll get into this why a little bit later. Additionally, in terms of describing the SU-9, I am going to be referencing my Precocity M3 as the absolute reference for what I feel is how things are supposed to sound. So we'll get into that with comparisons. Now, in terms of the build and the function, the chassis is fairly lightweight. The volume knob it's lightweight, but it's got some clicks. This is a digital volume knob, so the clicks are okay, or the steps, you could say. On the back, we have the variety of inputs. I do appreciate the full-size power socket, so no switching power supply. There's a third dot in the middle at the back, which is goofy. Everything else here has 4 dots, so it doesn't really move. This having 3 dots means you get this. You guys aren't going to be touching this or moving it around a lot, but still, it's a little aggravating. Additionally, the USB is really stiff. I use the same USB cable with my Precocity M3, the RME ADI2, the Zendac, the Modius, the Modi 3, right? Same cable, never have any resistance. With the SU-9, it's kind of stiff. I kind of have to push just a little more to get the USB flush, which, whatever. You guys aren't going to be plugging and unplugging it like I do when I'm reviewing, but I still would have liked to seen a more, maybe like just a smoother action from that USB, but I'm sure it's fine. Build quality is nonetheless nice. The chassis is quite seamless. It has a good weight, and it does have, of course, no seams or edges or places where it overhangs. Speaking of build quality, the ship Modius is nice, except on the unit that I have, one of the panels does that. When you turn it on, you can see the white LED glowing through the actual chassis itself, so it's not flush. That said, at $440, I appreciate a flush and uniform chassis. Excellent feature. Now, in terms of comparing SU-9 and kind of defining it, I did listen to the XLR outs exclusively with my stack system. That system is composed of a Molyneux Audio CCS modded Stax SRM 007TA. I listened to that system with the ES Lab ES1A and my Stax SR009. The ES1A is a tonally rich, sometimes wet headphone. A nice, very, rich harmonic profile. The 009 is a little bit brighter and somewhat dry. So, different. Now, the RCA outs I only listen to with my HD800. My HD800 does have the SDR mod, so I do feel it kind of sits in the middle. It is wetter than it is dry, but it's also a smidge brighter than it is dark. So overall, I feel it's a nice middle-of-the-road headphone for my tastes. Again, now these products that I'm comparing it to, the RME ADI2 is 1,000, sits above it. Modius is 200, sits below it. And then Modi is, 99. And then the iFi unit is 130. For these units, all of them take a switching power supply, so I am happy to have a set of the iFi iPower X switching power supplies. That said, how does SU-9 sound? What is its characteristic sound signature or the profile? It is, in my opinion, not so much bright, but energetic and vivid. There is a slight bit of emphasis in terms of the attack or leading edge of sounds. I find that as a whole, the central and mid range so where vocals are present most often, is slightly recessed. When I compare SU-9 to my Bricasti M3, the, well, literally spoken voice, singing, lyrics, vocals in particular are a little bit quieter or not quite as forward in the mix, if that makes sense. Now, M3 is above and beyond more detailed, more natural. The envelope on M3 is perfect. I mean, really, everything with M3 is on point. So to say that this is recessed, I guess it helps because it brings the vocals back, which creates the perception of more space. Now, a simply better DAC will still present vocals with a natural sound without needing to pull them back to create space perceptually, right? So M3 just presents a larger, more cohesive soundstage without the vocals themselves sounding a little bit recessed or pulled back. But nonetheless, SU-9, it's aggressive. It's got a bit of a forwardness or emphasis on the attack of things. The bass is very well textured and the top end has good extension. Now, when you get into comparisons and why should I have the SU-9 when the Modi 3 measures really well, its presentation. I feel that the SU-9 complements a headphone system that is built around headphones that are more engaging, have a really rich tonality, slightly dark, just a really nice full-bodied presentation. ES-1A is such a headphone. Now, I don't feel that it's really overemphasized with its presentation, but nonetheless, it is a little bit darker compared to 009. It does have a more full-bodied tonal presentation regarding 009, and the bass is, well, heavier, a little bit more weighty when compared to 009. So a headphone like this, like the ES Lab ES-1A, will appreciate a slightly more aggressive presentation from the source. So, that said, how does SU-9 compare to the Modi and Modius, as well as the iFi Zendak and the Army ADI2? Let's start on the low end. What I like about Zendak is this is technically an all-in-one. The RCA outs on Zendak are not my favorite. They're kind of loose and flabby. What you can do, though, is use the 4.4 Pentacon socket with a 4.4 Pentacon jack and get a balanced output. Cool cable, by the way. So with the balanced output of the iFi Zendak, I did feel that the Zendak had that slightly more fuller, more natural presentation of vocals, but it suffered with congestion in the lows, and it wasn't really rolled off on the top end. It was just nice full tonal presentation with some looseness in the lows and a bit of congestion when there's a lot of other instruments overlapping. What I did like about the iFi Zendak, however, is this only does the level 2 rendering, the 2 unfolds for MQA, but there is better software support right now for Zendak. When I listen to MQA through Tidal, through Android running USB Audio Player Pro, USB Audio Player Pro recognizes that this is a 2496 capable DAC and does the software decoding within the software, and then the DAC picks up the back end of this and does the full level 2 render. The software recognizes the hardware's capability, and it is seamless, level 2 rendering with MQA. Now, as of this moment, USB Audio Player Pro only sees this as a 48K capable DAC. The DAC will display that it's doing a full 2496 level 3 decode, but the software doesn't. So I think that slight mismatch is just something that'll be patched. The software support for SU-9 will come in the future. As of right now, however, the MQA works. You just may not get the full decode today with existing software. If MQA is important to you, it is very likely that in the next coming weeks or months, we will see software updates to applications such as like Rune or potentially JRiver, or the one that I use, the USB Audio Player Pro, to support the full level 3 decoding with this. MQA aside, though, I do feel that SU-9 is a step up from the iFi Zendak, just because you've got the XLR outs and the RCAs that are both less congested and just more detailed with better staging. Adding body to a presentation is something you can do with a headphone. Again, I feel like Zendak is going to favor those more energetic headphones, whereas SU-9 is going to pair well with headphones that are themselves full-bodied. The very, very popular and well-acclaimed Sennheiser HD6XX is such a headphone that does have that really full-bodied presentation. Moving on to the shit DACs. Let's start by talking about just RCA. The Modius and the Modi both have RCA outs, but Modius has a different circuit for its RCAs and its XLRs. In my opinion, if you only need RCA input, right, you're only going to use the RCA out on Modius and only going to run into a singleted amplifier, Modius is a waste. Both of the shit DACs with the RCA out have a really nice full-bodied low end, really natural vocals, and some slight roll-off on the top end, and they sometimes suffer from congestion. I will mention that Modius is a smidge less problematic. You know, it's not as congested at times, it's not as full-bodied, it's not as rolled off, but I mean, overall the presentation is very similar. If you do not need XLR outputs and you're looking at the shit products, just get the Modi 3. There's no reason to spend $200 for the Modius if you're not going to use the XLRs. Now, moving on. How do the XLRs of the Modius compare to the SU-9? What I like about Modius is it has a more cohesive stage, and I feel like a more natural presentation of vocals. Modius is technically a smidge forward when I compare it to the Bricasti M3 as an absolute reference. But just speaking of SU-9 and Modius, there's a slightly fuller sound and a more cohesive presentation of sound within the sound stage. So things moving from left to right, forward or backward. This becomes important if you're watching movies. I watched the movie Whiplash while I did this review, and I just appreciated the immersion that I got with Modius in the sense of how it placed sounds based on what I was seeing on the screen. I appreciated that there was a bit more nuance in the vocals and the spoken dialogue with Modius, just because it doesn't have that slight recession in the vocals particularly. Now on the flip side, my favorite scene in Whiplash is like the last 15 or so minutes. You know, when the actor is speaking and the band is playing, I'm able to discern more of the nuance of his speech. His lips, his tongue, how he's forming his words with Modius. I like that level of detail because he's in the guy's face. But the problem is the music is a bit congested. So yes, I have a more nuanced presentation of the dialogue, but the music is, you know, the staging is more cohesive, but it's just, there's a lot of overlap. With SU-9, I understand the dialogue the same way, but there's less of the nuance. There's less of, I should say, I don't perceive as much of how he is forming his words and speaking it. You know what I mean? I can hear it, the changes in volume, the different syllables, but the little things like lips and the tongue and the teeth and all that jazz are not as vivid. But the music itself is less congested. So Modius, I feel, is an amazing value if you only need the XLR outs. If you just need XLR out, whether you're feeding a set of speakers or you're feeding a fully balanced amplifier, if you need the XLR outs of Modius, it is a fantastic DAC for $200. If you need Modius to run both with the XLR outs and the RCAs, I don't feel its performance is strong enough to get my recommendation. Now, how does it compare to SU-9? SU-9 has a different presentation. SU-9 is going to favor or pair well with those full-body, tonally rich headphones. Modius is going to favor and pair well with the drier, brighter, and sometimes less tonally dense headphones like 009. However, if you need RCA out and XLR out, I think SU-9 is just the better product altogether. Even with the 009, I enjoyed listening to the RCA outs more, which technically I can do a, what is it called? An RCA to 3-pin. I can do a single-ended output into a balanced input on an amplifier, and it's acceptable. What you never want to do is you never want to run a balanced output into single end without a transformer. If you want to run the XLRs of Modius into a single-ended amp, you need a 1-to-1 transformer in between, which I don't recommend doing because you're going to spend like $200 on a good one or spend $100 building one for yourself. No, just buy a better product. Don't get a transformer to switch the fully balanced 3 pins to single-ended. Anyhow, running RCA with the HD800 and running RCA again into the stack system with the 009, it's still more enjoyable with SU-9. Modius's RCAs are just really lackluster. If you need RCA input, just get a Modi 3. It's, you know, almost the same for half the price. Like Modi 3 is 95% of Modius for 50% of the cost. Now Modius's XLR are again worthwhile if that's all that you need. SU-9 is going to have the full Bluetooth support with LDAC and the UAT. So if you need that Bluetooth support, it's a phenomenal product. And I did get the LDAC to work quite nicely with my LG V20 with the newest Android patch for it. Additionally, the MQA support will get better. If you need MQA and you value that full level 3 decoding, this is an excellent product. I feel, in my opinion, the SU-9 is worth it over Modius when you're going to use the extra functions. So, I like Modius. What do I like Modius? I like it on speakers, to be honest. Because I've got studio monitors which are themselves kind of bright, and it's just a really nice pairing there. I just do 3-pin out and into the speaker system. It's great. SU-9 was, for me, a better product when I integrated it with a bunch of different things. I have had no problem using both the Bluetooth, the coax, and the USB with SU-9, and then hooking it up to a variety of products. For me, Modius is kind of limited to one output. Just use the XLRs. That's it. I see SU-9 as a better product for those of you that have multimedia systems that need a nice, transparent DAC. You could, if you really wanted to, you could upgrade from Modius into SU-9. I would advise, if you're doing that upgrade, that you maybe pair SU-9 with a tube amp. Modius sounds nice with like the Robert Neve head amp Precision, which has 3-pin inputs. It sounds good like the SP200. SU-9, likes to have a little bit of added body from amplification or added body from the headphones. But I still think that it can serve as an upgrade if you need the support. If you need Bluetooth with LDAC and UAT, if you need MQA decoding and you have a variety of amplifiers you need functioning off of a single source, SU-9 is a phenomenal value. So guys, that wraps up my thoughts. Real quick, SU-9 was not better than the Army ADI2. It's still an amazing product. The digital function alone just kind of swamps SU-9. I will mention that SU-9 does have digital filters, and the digital filters can help you change its presentation. I found that the fast hybrid filter on SU-9 gave me more cohesive staging, but introduced some top-end roll-off. So it made the DAC a little bit dark, which has its purpose. I liked the fast hybrid with brighter headphones like 009. For most of my listening, I kept it on the slow linear because I felt that gave me better detail and just a little more precision in terms of the staging without as much of the cohesion. But my point, the eSaber DAC and integration of SU-9 does include digital filters, which can help you make those small changes to presentation to really fine-tune it for your system. Now, ADI2 has the same functions. It has the same set of filters. It even has a parametric EQ. So I don't feel that SU-9 is going to be a better purchase over the Army ADI2. Now, this is also twice the price and has absolutely no MQA or Bluetooth support. Nonetheless, this was my primary DAC for the longest time, and I had to move up to like, what, a $6,000 or $7,000 DAC to get a true upgrade from this. That said, for what you get, I think SU-9 is an excellent product. It is one that I recommend if and only if you need all of the functions it offers. If you're going to use everything that it has to offer, it's a great purchase and I highly recommend it. Guys, thanks again for watching. Please leave your questions and comments in the section below. Check out the guys at Apos Audio too, as I'm sure they're going to be shipping quick. I've enjoyed working with them and their customer service is exceptional. Nonetheless, as always, thank you for watching, guys, and happy listening.